Hello, great souls. Welcome to our Living Yoga Satsang talk. Let's take a moment and begin together with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters of self-realization, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and beloved Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, we humbly bow to you all. Guide us in our time together. Help us to dive deeply into these teachings and to make them our own. Help us to draw the light, the grace, the wisdom that is here within these teachings, within this divine vibration of the Masters, and to awaken to our own highest truth, our divine soul nature, and to share whatever we receive joyfully with all. Om, peace. Amen. Okay, so good to be with you. Today we're going to be looking at two areas of yoga philosophy. The first is the Yamas and the Niyamas, and the second is the system of the Chakras. And normally when I'm talking about these, I don't teach them or talk about them together, in part because there's so much to say about either that I've just never approached it by talking about them together. But the idea today is once we have an understanding of this philosophy, so this comes from the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, as refined in the art and science of Raja Yoga by his direct disciple, Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda. So we're looking at that today. And if we have a base understanding of the Yamas and Niyamas, so this comes from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Ashtanga Yoga, and we have a basic understanding, of the chakra system. So that, let's say we've gone through Raja Yoga. I've talked about these in previous conversations, so I'm kind of coming at it today with looking at it that way, that there's a basic understanding of it, and if you don't have that, then there are lots of ways. You can go onto our website, the Sangha, Ananda Sangha Palo Alto website, and there's just many, many, many resources on this, and even previous talks that I've given. So let's start with the basic of the Yamas and the Niyamas and the chakra system, and I'm actually going to have the camera zoom out a little bit so that you can see. I have them written down here on the whiteboard, just as a reminder, as a reference. So the Yamas, sometimes referred to as the restraints or the don'ts, and the Niyamas are the observances or the do's. And these are guidelines of practice that help us to stay on course with who we are in our essence. What it's said about the Yamas and Niyamas is that when we practice them, we're acting, behaving, thinking in a way that's natural to our divine self. So ultimately, as we practice them, we're practicing coming from our own soul nature. These aren't outside laws imposed on us that we should do to be good. We are good. So the Yamas and Niyamas help us live in that essence of goodness, of our divine essence. The chakras are energy systems. So this, when we talk about the chakra system, this is the astral anatomy, the energy body. And again, a whole course can actually be given and has been given on the chakras. Asha gave a wonderful talk on this. It just comes to mind to me that you can find if you go, again, back to our website. You can find more about it. But the idea with the chakras is that these are energy systems that are living within us, and they have qualities that we can work with in our yoga practice and in our daily life. So when I think about these two systems, because first we learn them. First I've learned them, and they're very powerful just as information, right? In the beginning of the Raja Yoga text, Swami Kriyananda, I'll hold that up for you so you can see it if you're not familiar with it. So this is the art and science of Raja Yoga. Swami says that the practice and the study of these teachings offers a revolution of the mind, a revolution of consciousness, that suddenly, for many of us, we have information we didn't have before about a context for living. In our Sunday services each week, there is a festival of light that we practice, and one of the lines in there is, for what end was I made? Who am I in reality? For what end was I made? And the art and science of Raja Yoga answers that for us. The teachings of yoga that Yogananda brought to us answers that question. It helps us know that we are a divine soul and there is purpose and meaning to our life and to our journey. So these tenets of yoga philosophy, the yamas and the niyamas, the chakra system, they offer us a support for not only understanding the context of our life, but then drawing on these tools to live in a way that's in alignment with these teachings. So if I think I'm going to step back a little bit now, and it's a little bit easier to talk to you in this way without, for the distraction of the posters. So when I think about how do I work with this in my life, how are the yamas and niyamas useful for me in my daily life? And there's a couple of different ways in which I can work with them. Now, part of it comes down to knowing them, right? So I've gone through classes and study groups where we've put our focus on this, and then I consciously am reminding myself. So I've done this, I've had friends talk about posting them around the house. So I'm reminded to have an awareness of nonviolence, right? One of the yamas, to be thinking about how do I work with that principle. So part of it is learning the principle. And then at a certain point, what I found for myself is it became a foundation of my life. It became something that I was naturally thinking about as I moved through my day. So non-stealing. What they say in the yamas and niyamas is there is a very kind of, the only word that comes to mind is a gross understanding, which is like the most obvious practice. So the obvious practice of non-stealing is obviously taking something that belongs to someone else. But are there other ways that might be something to practice? And even in that obvious, it can appear in an unexpected way. I had a student one time sharing with me, we were talking about the yamas and niyamas, and she said she'd been at the grocery store and she noticed that she didn't get charged for an item. Like suddenly she just saw that she didn't get charged for an item. And I can't remember now if it was in that moment or after she got home, but the yamas and niyamas came back to her and she knew, non-stealing, I have to return this item or pay for it. It's not okay for me to keep it. That would be taking something that isn't rightfully mine, that doesn't belong to me. So, and she was saying it from a perspective of the freedom that came when she aligned herself with that. So instead of a burden, instead of, some kind of heavy moral idea, it was, if I do this, it will free up the energy within me. I will feel lighter. I'll feel more expanded in myself. This is the way of living that's in alignment with my own highest truth. So part of what we do is we learn these teachings and then we begin to bring them in. Consciously first, and then over time more naturally. I think of them as friends, that they're there for me and they appear and they offer me a little bit of course correction, like in that story with my friend. Truth, I'll share this. When I'm writing an email, this is a place that it can come up just very naturally in my life. Let's say I'm communicating with something and someone, and maybe I'm saying something that's not easy to say. Maybe I'm asking for something that's not easy to ask for, or I'm needing to say no to something. And now, so here I am communicating, and ideas will come. Oh, I could say it this way. This could be a way that I explain, or just say, I'm not available, or, what might I say? And I measure that, whatever it is that I write, I measure it against truth. And I'll ask myself, is that true? Is that true? So maybe I'm saying no to someone's asked to do something, and I'm not able to say yes to that. Maybe it's a yoga teacher or something, and they're wanting, so I'm navigating that, right? And it can be tempting to say something that sounds better that isn't entirely true. It's not entirely true. And I'll look at it and just ask, is that true? And if the answer is no, I need to rewrite it. Say, well, don't say that then. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, it does sound good. It does sound good. It might be received more easily if I say it in that way. But if it isn't true, I don't want to say it. It's better to take longer to write that email and respond until I can say it truthfully. And I call upon the masters. I'll pray about it. Some emails are harder than others. Some is just very easy to be truthful about. But I'm mentioning it in this way because these are the more subtle practices of the Yamas and Niyamas, of how they can show up once we know them, once they become part of our repertoire. And again, it's a balance of asking the question, where am I with that? Right? So you might review them, look at them, review them. One of my friends posted them in her house. She was going through a difficult time. She was actually having a conflict with another friend, and it was really unsettling for her. And it came to her mind, Yamas and Niyamas, that's what I need. I need to see those. And she had them, she had her partner print them out for her. And she posted them and just kept looking at them and asking for guidance, asking for support, asking for help. And I think that is a cornerstone part of the practice. Not only do we learn the teachings, but we begin to relate to them in a living way. That within the teachings is the vibration of grace. It is divine power. So what's interesting about the practice is that we're practicing being in alignment, and then we're also drawing grace to us as we practice it, through our receptivity to our wanting to do it. Each time I look at an email and I ask myself, is this true? And if it isn't, and I don't immediately know what to say then, I'm asking the masters to guide me. Help me say this in a way that's truthful, so I can stand in that, be in a place of integrity. And also, one of the practices of truth with the Yamas and Niyamas is that it's always beneficial. So there's a quality within truthfulness that is non-harming, and this is how they begin to work together. Right? With the chakras, when I'm working with the chakras, and I do, they're with me again, like a friend that I travel with throughout the day, how I might work with the chakras is first through the elements. So the first chakra is the earth element, stable, grounded, steadfast, firm. A sense of, I might ask myself, in fact, I do ask myself, throughout the day, if I'm just and this is a spiritual practice for me, which is to check in on my attunement. I check in on my alignment. Where am I? How's the day going? Now, this is something that Yogananda encourages as an end of day practice, is to review your day from a perspective of, one way he says it is how the battle went. And this comes from the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata. We're looking at the forces, as Yogananda called them, the mental citizens within us. And these characteristics that either are supporting us in rising and reaching for and living in our highest aspirations, or the patterns that are within us that are pulling that energy down. And it's not just within us, this is cosmic energy. So it's not just within me that these forces exist, these forces are also around me. And the yoga practice, the yoga lifestyle helps me attunement into those forces that guide me towards my highest truth and my highest self. So I also do have that end of day practice. How'd it go today? But I also have it throughout the day. A nice time for me, it's more common and more natural within my teaching to be doing this, right? It would be more natural as a yoga teacher or a meditation teacher or spiritual counseling. I would much more likely and certainly hopefully be in a place of attunement. But how about in between time? Washing the dishes, laundry, tending to the garden, writing an email, whatever I might be doing, going for a walk or bike ride, spending time with my husband or friend. Those in between times, to have a practice that asks the question, where am I with my energy? And that's what the chakras are beautifully it's not just the teaching of energy, it's a beautiful tool for working with our energy. So if I do a quick scan of myself, if I feel kind of scattered, right, that would be a higher chakra, the wind, the ether. So again, because I know them, I can say, okay, how can I pull my awareness back in? I often go to my feet, which is the first chakra, the root chakra, grounded. How can I come back to my center, come back to this moment? And from that place of stability, begin to guide my energy consciously upward. That's the practice of working with the chakras. The energy is either rising upward, and as it does so, moving from the base of the spine up toward the spiritual eye. As that energy rises, it gives us access to the highest, most beneficial qualities of each chakra. So in my first root chakra, earth element, if the energy is going downward and out, I can be stuck. So rather than stable and grounded and firm, I can be stubborn and rigid and unmoving. In my consciousness, so an opportunity comes my way, I push against it. I don't want to. That sounds hard. That sounds difficult. Okay, so first chakra, how can I turn that in a way that will lift it? What will help me work with this opportunity? One of our yoga postures is Bujangasana. And Bujangasana is the cobra pose. You're lying on your belly, you place your hands on the floor, and you're pressing down and rising up, and it activates the energy of the spine. All of the yoga postures activate the chakras in a beneficial way in Ananda Yoga. So here we are, Bhujangasana. I'm coming into a position of strength. I'm rising and challenging myself enough in the pose that I can feel a flow of energy. And now I'm mentally affirming, I rise joyfully to meet each new opportunity. I rise joyfully to meet each new opportunity. As I do that, I'm engaging the flow of energy. I'm lifting my consciousness toward the spiritual eye with that affirmation. So I've got the physical practice of the yoga posture. I'm lifting my awareness, my focus and concentration with an affirmation that Swami Kriyananda wrote for the pose. He meditated deeply in each of the asanas to tune into what's happening here and how to help us in our practice align with that. So with the yoga, with the chakras, during the day, because I know them, I can begin to ask different questions. So we've got the base chakra is earth and water element. And when water element, when that energy is rising, I can flow with life. Okay, something comes my way, I can adapt to it. Water is very adaptable and moving. If the energy is down and out, I become wishy-washy and indecisive. I don't really know, I can't really decide. So these are things that just help us to, and help me to say, oh, okay, I don't need to judge myself in that, feel badly about it. It's information, it's data that I say, All right, what can I do with that? Well, I want to be grounded, so let's get that awareness in. A walk outside, a walk on the grass, standing out. I always choose nature when I can. To even a few moments, it's amazing how it will shift me, and I can have shoes on, I don't have to be barefoot, but anywhere I'm standing can do that. And then I take that water element and I begin to rise, and in the belly is fire. So this light, this energy of self-mastery, self-control, when that energy is centered and rising, I have a sense of mastery of myself. I can choose what I want to be doing, right? That is in alignment with my soul. Versus when that energy is going down and out, it tends to be controlling of other people, things around me. I'm overly focused on controlling my environment or people around me. When the energy's in and rising, it's self-discipline, self-mastery. I'm able to look at my own life and utilize that energy that's there. That's the point of it. This energy is here for us. There's a whole chapter in which Swami Kriyananda talks about, the delusion of energy in our daily life is we can feel physical fatigue and think we don't have any energy because of it. And he has this beautiful story he tells where he kind of sets up the stage perfectly that, after you're reading it, you think, who wouldn't be exhausted? A long, difficult day, in a long, difficult week. By the time you get home, you see, there's all these dishes in the sink. You throw yourself on the couch, I have no energy. That's the essence of the story. And then you get a phone call from a friend you haven't seen in a long time, one of your dearest friends who you love spending time with. They have tickets to a fantastic concert you've always wanted to go to. Are you available? Well, suddenly you just spring off the couch. You can't wait to get dressed and run and go meet your friend. Where did the energy come from? It's about consciousness. We accessed it, right? Something happened to stimulate and awaken the energy. With the chakras, we begin to practice them, to know them and work with them, to give us access to the energy that's always there. Right? And again, we're drawing help from the masters to help us. So even there, I would be saying a prayer. I would be asking the masters to help me lift that energy and bring it upward. So now what I'm working with is supporting my life rather than working against what I'm wanting for the best life that I can lead. The energy rises into the heart center, and this is the area of prana. In the Yoga Sutras, pranayama. And this is vitality and strength and courage. So when the energy there is centered in and comes up, that's what it feels like, to have a courageous heart, to lead with the heart in our life. Versus to be emotional, right? So if my energy is in the heart center, but it's going outward, then I'm very likely to be reacting to life and reacting to circumstances with a lot of, it seems like feeling. In the yoga practice, it's more emotion than it is a deep, calm, powerful sensitivity to life. And that's what I find in the practice of yoga gives me, is an open heart, very sensitive to life, to my own experience, to the experience of others, but from a place of inner strength. One of my teachers, Diksha McCord, was talking one time about being in the heart, and she said, when you're with another person, be careful about the tendency to go outside of yourself into their reality. And she used the expression of, my heart goes out to you. She said, energetically, we can lose the energy and lose ourself. It seems kind, it seems supportive, but we're not actually able to offer the other person their own highest truth, their highest reality. We're not able to help them in that way to draw grace into their own life. If instead we can stay centered, open in the heart, lift our own energy towards the spiritual eye, and be looking at them from the reality of a divine soul. They can feel our compassion. They'll feel, it's been my experience, I feel it in others when they relate to me in that way. I feel their love. I feel their support. And I feel the strength that their presence awakens in me. And that's part of the practice. So then we come into the throat chakra. This is calm, discrimination, wisdom. If you're making a decision, And again, like here I said earlier, I'm writing something, is it truthful? I can bring these practices together. I can be asking, is it truthful? And then also calling for a sense of higher wisdom. What's the higher reality here? Swami Kriyananda was asked one time, she's asked many, many questions, but one question in particular a student posed to him, and it's the kind of question that, boy, you hear it and you think, wow, how would you answer that? It had to do with the Holocaust and living there in one of the camps, and what would be the right decision? Would it be better to do this or do that? In this moment, the details I don't feel are all that important. His answer is what's most meaningful in terms of wisdom. He said to the student, what you're really asking here is, what is God's will? What is God's will? What is divine will in this situation? That's really moving up our chakra system within ourself. By the time we get here, we have a calm steadiness, a spacious expansiveness. The throat chakra is ether, so more refined than prana in the heart. And then it goes to the base of the skull, which Yogananda called the mouth of God. Also, it's the center of ego consciousness, which is simply said, Yogananda said, ego is the aspect of the soul identified with the body in the material realm. So that which makes me think that the world around me is real, that my body is who I am. Well, we're there, and we bring that awareness to the spiritual eye. And in that journey from the base of the skull to the spiritual eye, which again, it's a whole system, it's not just there, there is an awakening and understanding of superconsciousness, a unity, an expansive perspective that allows us to see things, well, I would say to see and hear divine will. And that was something that Swami talked about for himself. He was in the practice of saying, well, Divine Mother, right? He would tune in. He had that daily practice. So as I was talking about earlier, as you begin to know the philosophies, part of the way that they become alive is if you work with them. As I'm saying today, I don't know if I've even thought of this before today, but they are like friends to me. Right? They are a living reality that the masters brought to us. Their ancient teachings, yoga comes from a higher age. So I've talked in previous conversations about the yugas. And yoga and the teaching, the science of yoga, comes from a higher age than the one we're in. Yogananda said that this is the age of Dwapara Yuga. Swami said that Yogananda is a guru for this particular age of energy. So in the cycle of the yugas, we are in an ascending age here, where yoga came from. So there's Kali Yuga at the base, coming a lot of philosophy today. Kali Yuga at the base, then Dwapara, then Treta, and then Satya. And Satya Yuga is the highest when we are closest to the divine ray of energy. And in that yuga, what it says about the yugas is it speaks to the consciousness, kind of the mass consciousness of those ages. What's the mass understanding? And the mass understanding in Satya Yuga are all the teachings of the art and science of Raja Yoga. People live in that, the most people. Now some people could be in a Kali Yuga, a very material sense of reality, but most wouldn't be. Yoga science comes from the Satya Yuga consciousness. So really we're practicing something beyond what the mass consciousness is living. You might have noticed. You might notice for your own life, right? Where I certainly can say that for myself. I recognized it immediately. I recognized the truth, and that's part of the power of truth because it is our soul nature. The essence of the teaching of self-realization is we remember who we are. Right? We practice the teachings, we learn the teachings, we work with the teachers, where all of these things, we have satsang and support to remember who we are, and we're drawn to them. The more that we practice them, the more we remember, and it feels right. So it might be foreign in terms of, I remember this with yoga. I came to yoga practice with a background in Catholicism, and I was I would say, a happy Catholic. So when I came to yoga, Ananda Yoga, I was looking for some tools to help me in my spiritual life. As it turned out, it was going to be a change in direction. In some ways, a change of direction. In another way, a deepening of what already was. So it was difficult for me to explain it on a logical level. And my family at one time said to me, because I had been a lay missionary at one point, and they said, how is yoga the same as being a lay missionary? Like, how does that line up? I remember writing them this long letter trying to explain what I couldn't really explain, other than saying, one is I felt Christ calling me to this. It was very clear to me. That was divine guidance that I received, that these teachings will help me go deeper in my relationship with Christ. And that's been true. It was a walk of faith for me to say. But when I started going to the expanding light and taking different trainings, everything I heard not only resonated as truth, it aligned with previous teachings of truth. I had different language for it. I would say, oh, right, karma yoga, I understand that. Selfless service, I called that ministry. Right? That and the language that I had been in, that's what that was called. So these teachings, as we practice them and we begin to make them part of our life, that's what really the talk today is about, is to take the philosophy, which is beautiful, inspiring, uplifting, and make it your own, right? So yes, we have to learn it first, and then as we practice it, we begin to remember it. That's half the battle right there, is remembering the tools. But then to kind of go to the next level for yourself and to say, well, how can I make them real in my life, these chakras? It's fascinating. I love the chakras. People love learning about the chakras. But how are they helpful for me in my daily life when I'm grocery shopping? I'm interacting with my husband. I'm writing an email to someone. How do the Yamas and Niyamas help me make decisions? Help me know, oh, this feels like divine will. This feels like my highest self. I'll end with a guideline that I utilize, which is the 8 aspects of the divine that Yogananda talks about. Light, love, peace, wisdom, sound, so that's the vibration of Om, power, and calmness. So I think I covered them all. There might be one other in there. I don't know if I said wisdom. I've talked about these before, and you can find them online as well. But what I want to say is that when I am engaging with these philosophical tenets and I'm utilizing them, what I notice at the end of the day when I ask the question, how did it go today? How was my practice of yogic lifestyle? I look to those aspects of the divine to see if any one of them is a little stronger. Did I feel peace today? Did I feel connected to calmness? Did I have a sense of love? Was there wisdom throughout my interactions? I don't look for all 8 of them to manifest. I just look for one. Joy. Was there joy? Did I find joy today? So I offer this to you as a practice, as something I hope is useful in taking your next step in the journey of making the philosophy your own. That's the essence of the talk today. So good to be with you. Great souls, wishing you much love and light and